Hi, everyone. Today is April 7th, 2025, day -1 to transplant. Um, yeah, tomorrow's the big day, I guess. Uh, it's kind of surprising that it's come up that fast. As of 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, I will have been admitted to the hospital for a full week. Um, the first week is what they call preconditioning, and apparently I did that. That was all the different types of chemotherapy through the other treatments and the radiation, the total body radiation that I had today. That was nothing eventful. They took you down to the basement of the hospital, and well, I can explain it. It's during my workup week. I went through a radiation simulation, they called it. And what they do is they have you sit on this like table or gurney in a certain position, and they take a bunch of measurements, a bunch of pictures, and they to somehow calibrate the machine to your body and where the masses are and things like that. So today they took those all that calibration stuff, set it into the machine. They put you on this gurney and they put you back into exactly the same position, and they tape you down so you don't move. And then they have laser references to line you up exactly, and they go around your whole body with little rulers and make sure they can tell where the laser or the radiation's shooting from. And across the room, it's in this huge room that there's this big machine that shoots out the radiation at you. You're just on this gurney, and I don't know, it bounces off the wall on the other side what misses you. And it takes about 8 minutes for it to perform the total amount of radiation that they wanted to put into me. Then they turn the gurney around, remeasure everything. You're still all taped into your position, and shoot the other side of you for 8 minutes. So it's like I said, that's what happens if you put a cat in a microwave, is basically it. So they will survive. Don't try that at home. But it's, yeah. The only other thing is, after today, there will be no little guys running around. Uh, but that's what has to be done. And it was kind of funny. They told me that after the radiation, I'd be real tired. I would get to come up to my room, and they said just take a shower and relax. Afterwards. Well, back to the radiation thing. I thought this was kind of funny. Yesterday, I'm sitting here in the hospital, and I get a notice to check in for a radiation appointment on my computer and pay a copay. Even though it's in the hospital, I'm not admitted to the hospital, but most of you have seen that. You go through, they ask a bunch of questions. They want to know your medications and all that. And I'm going, I don't know my medications. I get, pills by the cups like this daily, and it's, I don't know what's all in them. It's probably close to 20 to 25 pills a day that they feed me. And, but anyway, my appointment was at 1 p.m. today. There's a knock on my door. The guy with the wheelchair, takes me out of here. Now I know how to get out of this unit too. Takes me down to the basement and drops me off there. And this is a busy place. From my, I could tell they had three different rooms that they were doing this process, you know, of different people at the time. There was like 6 people in line in like wheelchairs, hospital beds, sitting on chairs, let alone a whole waiting room full of people. And from where I could see, there was at least 3 rooms that they performed these radiation, you know, treatments in. And, it's like total time in there was less than a half an hour when it was done. They said, "Can you make it back to your hospital room?" And I go, "I think so." And they said, "Okay, we'll see ya." And they just turned me loose in the hospital and walked back to my room. I kind of told my wife about that tonight. She kind of like raised her eyebrow, going, "I don't think they're supposed to do that." She goes, "Did you sneak outside and get some fresh air?" And I said, "No, I'm going, tempted I should have, but I would have looked kind of funny walking out the front door of the hospital dressed the way I am and looking the way I am and wearing slippers or socks or whatever." But anyway, so, but the plan was to come back to my room and rest. Well, I got back to my room. It was a little before 2. And right away, it's a knock on the door. It's the doctor to talk about a study that I'm in for the MS cure part of stem cell transplants. And so I talked to her for a little bit and she explained some of the stuff. Then there was someone came in to take an EKG, and that was something for another study that I'm in. I'm in quite a few studies through this, but that's what they say. That's what makes this stuff happen is research. And then I'm going, okay, time to take a shower and relax. And then there's a knock on the door, and it's physical therapy. And she goes, "You're scheduled for physical therapy now." I go, "Okay." So, and I had already walked, I'm walking these laps around the unit here. I had already walked 33 laps today. I got up and did 11 before breakfast, then I did 11 after breakfast, and then 11 before I went to the radiation treatment, and figured because they told me I'd be real tired after that, you know. So then she says, "Well, you walked enough today." And so they have like an exercise room, and she put me on some exercise machines and had me do a bunch of exercises for an hour. And then my wife came down to visit, and one of my daughters stopped in to visit. And so I didn't get into the shower till about 8 o'clock tonight. So it was kind of a long day. And then, it's constant nurses coming in and, taking vitals and things like that and flushing central lines and whatever. But anyway, tomorrow is the big transplant day. Pretty excited about that. Learned a little bit about that today. Stem cells are coming from Germany. They they say that the plane lands about 2:30. Then they have to go through customs, and then they go to St. Paul to what they said was some cell therapy center, and to be checked out. I have no idea what that means. So, they're saying that my transplant will probably take place sometime between 8 p.m. and 10:30, 11 p.m. tomorrow evening. So it will be interesting. And then they also said, um, that when they collect stem cells in Germany, they like to make sure they send enough of them, or they actually send some, you know, a lot of extras. They like to err on the side of sending extras. So if they didn't think they'd harvested enough today, they will harvest more tomorrow, and the transplant, potentially could be delayed, which they said is no big deal. So that's, you know, we'll see what happens. That's what goes. And then I was learning more about this. They said they do a lot of transplants from stem cells harvested in Germany. And one of the nurses or PAs was telling me this morning, but they said that it's a requirement that everyone has to be a registered stem cell donor over there in Germany. And then there's ways that you can get out of it, but people really prefer to do it because there's some really good benefits, for doing it that the German government provides for people, and people, to encourage people to do it. People want to do it. So I'm going to have to do some research on that and find out more, because this was all new to me, and I don't want to pass on inaccurate information. But if someone knows something about it or finds something about that, please let me know too. I think it's interesting, because I've talked to two people on the unit here, and both of them have got their stem cells from Germany, which, I thought was interesting when they told me that's where mine was coming from. But in my past attempts to get this far, they had never told me where the donor was from. So, but anyway, I'm going pretty long tonight. I guess I'm kind of wound up with tomorrow being the big day. It's, I'm sure it will be a letdown as far as it's nothing miraculous, but it will be just interesting to see. But they keep talking about it's how it's this preconditioning is hard on your body, but you don't show the effects for about a week after, and then with the transplant. So to see how I go downhill towards the end of this coming week and into the next week, it will be kind of interesting to see what happens. So I will let you guys go, and thanks for watching. Good night.